Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm joined by Joyce saying, Joyce, it's another wonderful night for Oscar. Oscar, and we're doing it at night. Another must-see TV.
But it's not Monday.
It's not.
No.
It's Wednesday?
Yes, it's Meryl Streep's birthday.
Happy birthday, Meryl Streep.
She's not nominated this year.
One of the rare times in the 1990s we're doing one of these, and Meryl Streep is not showing up as a nominee. But we're here to do the 93 Oscars, Joyce.
Yes, it's the 65th.
Or as it was known during the broadcast, the Year of the Woman.
But was it though?
Not according to anyone who watched it or talked about it at the time or now watching it back. It's a tough watch. This is the 1993 Oscars. It was a Monday, March 29th, 1993. Another 9 o'clock start and a 3-hour, 33-minute show. So not bad. Again, shorter than this year's.
Mm-hmm.
45.7 million viewers watched Unforgiven win Best Picture. That was up from about 1.3 million from the year before when Silence of the Lambs won Best Picture.
So, yeah.
Richard Gere, when he stopped filibustering about freeing Tibet, said that 1 billion people were watching during this show.
Maybe he was exaggerating.
Maybe he meant around the world.
So
that was the type of level of audience they were expecting in the 90s. 1 billion people are going to watch the Academy Awards.
Well, if you recall, when we did the Shakespeare year, you read a quote from the ABC executive, how they were just like besides themselves that they went down to just 45 million.
Because it was off such a run.
They were off of Titanic.
It's amazing. Yeah. And then that guy was bemoaning that maybe they needed a Star Wars movie to get nominated.
Yes, yeah.
Which was Phantom Menace. Good try.
Lots of nominations for Star Wars.
Maybe next time. This is like I would say from my perspective, the 1992 in film, we'll talk about this. Great year for film. Another great year. A lot of faves. And again, another solid the nominees, I could have some quibbles, but I think like you're going Silence of the Lambs, Unforgiven, and then Schindler's List after this is the year after, right? That's like 3 incredibly good winners 3 years in a row.
Yeah, I actually like Unforgiven.
Me too. Yeah. It's really good. I like Clint Eastwood movies, not as much as like most film Twitter people do. I think there's like a not a vulgar auteurism around Eastwood, but I feel like a lot of his like late stage movies, people are just like, damn, there's Clint doing it again. And I'm just like,
so did you like Cry Macho?
And The Mule, I'm just like, they're not necessarily for me, I'd say. Not even Sully was really for me. But
I mean, his recent output, perhaps not his best.
But I think with Unforgiven, it is definitely nowadays. I feel like it's such a deep cliche to be like revisionist Western because all Westerns now are revisionist basically. But at the time, it's like was really novel, right? Like Unforgiven was like, oh, here's this like great hero Clint Eastwood, and his character is actually like a terrible murderer who like is an awful human being, but is somehow less awful than Gene Hackman, who is amazing in this movie. Just a great time to be Gene Hackman.
And that movie also just elevated the genre.
Yeah.
And it traded in on obviously his persona.
I also think that we talked about this actually last week because we're not doing these in any normal order. But last week we did Dance with Wolves over Goodfellas.
I prefer this Unforgiven.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But I think also one of the things that helped Unforgiven like kind of like steamroll through the Academy Awards is that the backlash to Dances with Wolves was almost immediate, I would say, right? Like people are like, Goodfellas is a better movie. Dances with Wolves is like high in its own supply. Kevin Costner high on his own supply. And here's Clint Eastwood just coming in being like, just going to do down and dirty Western, take down my own, mystique, and it's going to be great. And I think that really helped it too.
There is, you don't have the right edition of Inside Oscar.
I know. Thank you for reading it.
Grab, like one of the section titles about the release of Unforgiven, and the section title is "Roll Over, Kevin Costner."
It's true. So let's go through 92 in film. Kevin Costner perhaps having the last laugh there, because The Bodyguard was just a massive hit. Number 2 movie of the year, 400 million worldwide with him and Whitney Houston. And I could argue, well, we'll talk about this in the ceremony. Both of them, I think, had a case to be nominated. I think The Bodyguard's a good movie.
I think The Bodyguard should have been nominated for Best Picture.
The Bodyguard is like a Star is Born Bradley Cooper version before A Star is Born, basically. I think there's a lot of similarities.
Except Kevin Costner did not write and direct this.
No, but it feels like he actually did, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had like a strong authorship, because no offense to
Final Cut.
Well, I'm just like, no offense to Mick Jackson, but it's like not a director, I think, of great renown. And I feel like Kevin Costner would have maybe been able to.
He did produce it, so he would have had
have a strong say in the matter. So. The number 1 movie of the year was Aladdin. Love Aladdin. So a lot of these movies I actually saw in the theater. I feel like every week I'm always like, I didn't see a lot of movies in the theater, and then I'm like, oh, I saw most of these in the theater. I also saw. So this was the year I was in high school, I guess, and still bad at math. I think I was 14, 78 to 92, 14.
You were 14. I was 7.
So I watched Aladdin. My school marching band, Joyce, marched in the Rose Bowl parade.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, it was really fun. And I think that was the 1993 Rose Bowl parade. And if I remember correctly, Aladdin was on VHS by the time that came out. And I remember watching it on the bus to the Rose Bowl parade.
Okay.
So that was when I saw Aladdin. I did not see Aladdin in the theater, but a great movie. Love Aladdin. Have watched it with my daughter since. Still fun. Robin Williams also should have got nominated, I would say. Fantastic voice performance.
Yeah, I saw Aladdin in the theaters, and then I saw it again in school. So in my elementary school, like during recess, if it's good weather, you had outdoor day, so you just go and play outside. But if it's bad weather, it's indoor day, so you go into the auditorium and watch a movie. So I saw a lot of movies on indoor day, right, and Aladdin was one of them. So oftentimes I would have seen the movie, and then indoor day, like it's just like more, they just show like kids movies basically. So I just see these movies again and again. Yeah, and Aladdin was one of them.
So Aladdin, I just looked it up, Joyce. Aladdin, actually, I saw it 90. We went to the 94 Rose Bowl parade, so I saw it a year later, a year behind. But I still saw Aladdin. Good movie. Bodyguard, I definitely saw on VHS. It was number 2 movie. Number 3 was Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
Great movie. Quote it all the time. Wow, what a hole.
I remember thinking, the Home Alone 2 was one of the first experiences where, not that I thought it was bad, but I remember being like, this maybe isn't as good as the first one.
Well, this is something we've talked about before, where like this was the 90s, the era of sequels, where the second movie like may not make a lot of sense, but they just go bigger.
Right. So this movie went so big, they turned Kevin McAllister into a full-on sociopath murderer. But because it's a cartoon, Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern are not dead by the end of this movie. But he's throwing like bricks off like apartment buildings into their faces, basically, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the plot of the first one, but in New York.
Correct.
And Brenda Fricker is there.
And Donald Trump. Whatever happened to that guy, Joyce?
I don't know.
Weird. Basic Instinct number 4. Not a movie I saw in the theater, though I definitely saw it on VHS around the same time. And I recently rewatched it, and it is just an absolute banger. It is so good. This movie rules.
I have not seen this movie in a while.
I cannot tell you how good it is. It's such a great thriller. Everyone in it is just on another level. I love it so much. Great score, great performances. Also should have been nominated for Best Picture, as I'll talk about. But that's the number 4 movie. Lethal Weapon 3. So here's a time where the biggest movie star in the world, and certainly for me, I talked about this to you earlier on Slack, Joe Pesci, just all over the place. They put Joe Pesci in Lethal Weapon 3. They screw you at the drive-thru, Joyce, that they put Joe Pesci in Lethal Weapon 3. He's in Home Alone 2. He's got My Cousin Vinny, which rules. Off of Goodfellas, off of the original Home Alone. What a time.
Yeah, the 90s, early 90s especially, great time for Joe Pesci and Emma Thompson.
Yes. I was not as, surprisingly, you'll be shocked to know, I was not as hip to Emma Thompson at 14.
Were you aware of Emma Thompson in 1992?
Yes, because all of these British movies ran together for me, and they were all just like stuff I'm never gonna see. That was really what it was like. I'm like, this is for grown-ups, and I don't care. Like, I'm sorry, Howard's End.
You just see like a British costume drama, and you're like, no.
Like that. That's what I would do. I remember I actually watched most of these in college. Like when I think maybe like sophomore year, I did a screenwriting class and we had to watch a lot of the Merchant Ivory movies. And I was like, oh, they're actually not bad. But that was like my first experience.
I like Howard's End.
Batman Returns, another banger.
Batman Returns.
Saw it in the theater, love it so much. A Few Good Men, which I love, unequivocally love. Though I actually think it's not as good as the rewatchables crowd would have you believe. I think it's fine, but it's a very good
movie. I don't think it's a movie that anyone like truly loves, like has like hardcore stans, but most people like the movie and enjoy the movie.
So the thing, I also rewatched this one within the last few years. The reason it is like so fondly remembered, and I think people are like, I love that movie, is because clearly like You Can't Handle the Truth and like the ending is unbelievably good. Just amazing. Nicholson, amazing Cruise, great Sorkin dialogue. And then there's like the Cruise scene when he's like, Rocco Clubbo's School for Women or whatever, right? When he's like drunk and he's like got his baseball bat, great stuff. Those are two great moments. The rest of the movie's fine. It's totally fine.
It's fine. And then I think it's funny because like I think to most people or like the general public, like the movie's just condensed down to that one scene now, like You Can't Handle the Truth.
Yes.
So and I think most people just know that even without having seen the movie.
That's one of the things about this year, I feel like, is we talked about this actually, I think, again, last week with like the memes. These were like memes before memes, but a lot of these movies were memed immediately and you don't even have to see it. Well, it's not on this list clearly, and we'll talk about it a lot probably, but like The Crying Game and the twist for The Crying Game, most people did not see that movie, but largely everyone understood the reference, and like the uncomfortable jokes throughout the Oscars were like not lost on the audience, I would say.
It also just wild because even after the movie was out, they were still trying to keep it a secret.
Yes. Don't spoil the end game, Joyce. There was the original Don't Spoil the End Game.
It's been 30 years. I can't spoil it. No,
now we could spoil it, but I'm saying like that was this was the original Don't Spoil the End Game. Don't spoil The Crying Game. Sister Act was a number 8th grossing movie of the year. Saw that in the theater. Really loved it. Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I remember seeing on cable, and it's a little was a little out there for me, I would say, at the time. I have not seen it in a long time.
I haven't seen it in a while either. But I didn't like it as a great score.
I don't even remember the score. I remember actually watching it on cable because I loved Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves. I was like, oh, they're contemporaries of, I like those people, so I'll watch it. And then Wayne's World number 10, great movie, just love it, so good. But again, another movie, full meme, Bohemian Rhapsody. I would say that was the first time I had ever heard Bohemian Rhapsody, Joyce.
So 1992 was a big year for me and Queen because obviously Bo Rap here. And then my favorite movie and the best movie of 1992 is The Mighty Ducks.
Yes.
Which came out October 2nd.
I've heard you enjoy that movie.
It's the best. Well, D2 is the best of the trilogy, but this is like my gateway. This was the formative movie of my childhood, and this is like really when I started to become like obsessed with movies and like really pay attention to movies. But We Are the Champions is played in it.
Great song. So, great movie.
They use We Are the Champions. They use We Will Rock You also in D2. So this was like my exposure to Queen in 1992.
Cannot say I remember much about Mighty Ducks. I remember.
I definitely watch it. It's
is it still good? Does it hold up?
I watch it all, like the 3 movies. I watched D3 at least. Everyone agrees like it's the worst.
Is Emilio Estevez in the 3rd one?
He's in the 3rd one, but he only agreed to do the 3rd one. He did 1 week on the 3rd one because he just wanted Disney to finance his film that he wanted to direct. So they're like, okay, fine. So the main coach in the 3rd one is Coach Orion, Jeffrey Nordling, who gives a really great speech about confidence and like playing defense. Like he's actually a good coach, and he actually teaches them how to play hockey. Gordon Bombay is not actually a good coach, but he's like a good guy. And yeah, so like this movie, I did not see in the theater, and I discovered it because of my friend who's a family friend, and I still vividly remember this. He ran into my house, and I was upstairs in my parents' room watching TV, and he was like, Joyce, I gotta show you something. And it was a VHS, and we watched it, and I was just instantly in love with it. And I wanted to own my own copy of the movie, but instead of asking my mom to go out and buy it, I made her just record it on a VHS. And if you don't know how this was done in the 90s, you have to hook two VCRs to each other.
Yes.
And then you play the tape, like the original tape in one, and like the blank tape or the tape you want to tape on another. And then you have to play the entire movie to do it. And I wanted full credits, obviously. So we watched it again.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then I eventually got like the real VHS of it, obviously.
That's awesome. I used to, yeah, that's how you had to do it. Also, like VHS were like not prohibitively expensive, but not like now where you could buy like something for like $10.
Yeah. And also it bothered me because D1, as it's retroactively called, was in the slipcase, but D2 and D3 were in the puffy case.
Can't have that.
Yeah. And I always wanted them to release D1 in the puffy case, but they never did. And I eventually got them on DVD. So yeah. And now they're on Disney Plus. So you should watch it with your daughter.
Okay. I will actually rewatch it. That was a great time for kids sports movies. So movies, I mean, I think might, and like varying levels, like obviously like Major League wasn't for kids, but I've definitely watched that. Like that was like in that realm.
Yeah. 90s kids movies.
Little Big League, Rookie of the Year, Mighty Ducks, a lot of good. I
will also say that Mighty Ducks D1, this was a little bit more mature than like your average kids sports movie in that era, because it leaned a little bit more PG-13 with the stuff in it. Like they say bitch.
Right.
Bombay says the law's a bitch when it works against you, isn't it, Jack? There is a racist joke in there that completely went over my head when I was 7.
Oh no.
Because so in the first game against the Hawks, when they were still D5, that Gordon Bombay is coaching, it's the face-off. So Jesse and Terry Hall and Guy go to center ice against McGill, who is like a dick on the Hawks. And actually the actor who played McGill died recently of cancer. Very sad. R.I.P. Michael Ooms. And so McGill says, what is this? The Oreo line? And Jesse and Terry Hall are Black, played by Brandon Adams, and Jesse Smollett, and Guy Germain is white, played by Garrett Henson. So when I heard that, I was like, I have no idea what that means.
Now it's canceled. Sorry to say, my Ducks is canceled.
And then so Gordon Bombay is a lawyer. There's like an earlier joke. So he just won his 30th case. And so he says he doesn't count one case because he scored the court reporter. And his assistant's like, oh, the one you said had the intelligent body. It's like this type of stuff that they would never put in a kid's movie. Certainly
not, but in keeping with what we'll see from the entire Billy Crystal ceremony, and just in general, the whole tone of the show, I feel like is keeping with that level of jokes, I would say. I wrote down you'll be surprised to know, Joyce, I wrote down about 58 notable movies for the year that were not the top grossing movies, but I'll just read off a few, and then you tell me if you've seen these or not. I think Juice, Mississippi Masala. You see either of those at the time? No, I did not. Saw them later though. Solid movies. My Cousin Vinny, like I mentioned, just an all-time. So your Mighty Ducks is my Cousin Vinny. I saw that in the theater with my mom in Port, and just the greatest. I don't think I've ever. The movies I remember laughing hardest at in my life are My Cousin Vinny and Something About Mary. My Cousin Vinny for me. Cousin Vinny is very funny. So I was 13 when it came out. This came out in March of 1992. Yeah, it came out the same day as Howard's End. Just the amount of vulgarity and the way that Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei say the F word. Just nobody has ever said it better. They say it so well. I used to do. I haven't had to pull it on the phone. I used to have this whole thing. I can't believe you don't know this by heart. I do mostly know it by heart. It came back, but there's so many things I love about it. I love everything. I just truly love this movie. It is so good. But the scene I love is when they're in the cabin and she's like, my biological clock is ticking like this. And then his not.
You do the foot tap too.
I used to do that, but his part is even funnier. I'll try to do it. Like, he's so annoyed. Again, things I love in movies is like, just when you're so like aggravated, the permanently aggrieved and aggravated, like Gene Hackman, we were saying, does it so well. Joe Pesci in this does it so well. He's so mad all the time. And he's like, Lisa, I don't need this. I swear to God, I do not need this. I got a judge who's aching to throw me in jail. The way it's just the whole thing, so well done. An idiot who wants to fight me for $200. Slaughtered pigs, giant loud whistles. I ain't slept in 5 days. I got no money, a dress code problem, and a little murder case, which in the balance holds the lives of 2 innocent kids. Not to mention your biological clock, your life, my career, our marriage. Let's see, is there any more shit we could pile on top to the outcome of this case? And he sits there like this. And it's just...
It is really great that he does it sitting down.
So he's so good. She's so good. The movie rules. Loved it so much. The Cutting Edge. Were you into that one?
Oh my God, I love The Cutting Edge. Figure skating, obviously, and Olympics. So I think I've told you this. So last year when I talked to Bill Lawrence,
Yes.
Well, this was for Ted Lasso, and I specifically was asking about like, why don't you think there are more sports TV shows? Because there's a lot of sports movies, obviously. And then he was saying that his wife was like telling him about this skating movie that he's never heard of called The Cutting Edge. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. How have you never heard of The Cutting Edge? And this was on a panel. And then everyone else, all these other showrunners, like, Bill, how have you never heard of The Cutting Edge?
So I do feel like it's been a little like Bill Lawrence should have heard of it. Bill Lawrence, you're watching this. I hope you have rectified that and watched it. But I think it has gotten lost to time. It's one of those movies that is not like, it's not like getting like a Netflix bump, you know, or whatever. It's like not around.
Yeah, it's definitely a movie like of its time, and it has a cult following, but it's not something that has grown over the years like My Cousin Vinny has.
No, it is not. And it is very much like the cult following is like people in our age group range.
Yeah, no one young is like discovering it.
No. Another one that is probably definitely problematic now, but I watched it was Ladybugs.
Oh, yeah.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Rodney Dangerfield and Jack Hay. Good times. White Men Can't Jump. Saw that. Definitely should have been gotten more shine at this Oscars. Somehow reunited the cast at this year's Oscars.
Well, yeah. Well, it is the 30th. It's better than what they did with Pulp Fiction for a 28th anniversary. So.
The Player was a movie I definitely watched like probably year or two later on VHS. Love it. It's like amazing.
The nominee for Best Picture.
Absolutely. Other ones I wrote down. Boy, I could do this all. There's just so many. I could do this all day, like Captain America. But Encino Man.
I wasn't a huge fan of Encino Man, but yes.
Liked Pauly Shore. Far and Away, which is the Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Ron Howard failure. Yes. Rare to see a Tom Cruise failure, just an outright flop. But there was one. Boomerang.
That was on recently, a couple weeks ago on TV. So
really fun. Didn't see that in the theater, but watched it at home. Loved Eddie Murphy. A League of Their Own, saw in the theater, all time.
Yeah. I like that too. Yeah, I like Gina Davis in it.
The original Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I think is fraught and probably canceled now because of the people involved and whatever, but I really didn't
watch that until the series premiered.
I actually never watched the series, but I like the movie so much. I was like that contrarian.
Watched Buffy the series.
I've watched some. I mean, I've watched some of it, but I was not a big Buffy guy. Death Becomes Her, which I remember being like it was a big special effects thing because of the way they like, you know, do the effects, I guess. These are ones I'll just like I said, I have like 100 of these written down. School Ties. Loved it. Singles, you can imagine, was a big movie for me. Pearl Jam has actual characters in it. Great movie. I had a big thing. This is a great time to be into Bridget Fonda. She's you know, I know she's basically retired now, but she had Single White Female and Singles this year. Great twofer for her.
Yeah, I have some of those. I had a lot of other youth skewing
movies. Two youths, Joyce.
Yeah, two youths. Beethoven.
Sure.
Yes. That was another indoor movie at school. Newsies, Baby Christian Bale,
Mhm.
obviously. Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
Saw that one. Rick Moranis. I was saying this to you earlier. The three most famous people in my life at the time of this: Joe Pesci, Rick Moranis, and Harrison Ford. No one ever more famous than those three men.
Patriot Games.
Patriot Games. Great time for these guys.
Three Ninjas, also another indoor movie.
Yep.
Yeah, at the way the sequels happened, very weird because they filmed two of them back to back, but they were released out of order.
Perfect. Love to see it.
A River Runs Through It.
So I watched it on cable, never was super fond of it.
I think it's a pretty movie.
Also confused it with Legends of the Fall, not gonna lie.
I can see that. Glengarry Glen Ross, which I saw years later.
Same, love it. Again, fully probably canceled now for a host of reasons, but man, it was great.
What else is there? Oh, Reservoir Dogs.
Saw that years later.
Yeah.
I actually remember Reservoir Dogs. So I remember my dad watched it. Like my dad would just watch. I think he caught it on like Showtime or something. I was like, oh, I watched this crazy movie last night, Reservoir Dogs. And I was like, I don't even know what the hell that is. And then like years later, I was like, holy shit, Reservoir Dogs. Quentin Tarantino, he rules. I haven't watched Reservoir Dogs in that long, but it does hold up. It's not bad.
I haven't seen it in a while. I feel like that's the type of movie, if like he had debuted with it now, it would have gotten nominated somewhere.
I have it down for a couple of things. The other ones I wanted to mention that I had written down too. Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah, remember what we were talking about last week for 2 years earlier with Dance of Wolves and Mary McDonnell not playing a Native American?
Yes.
Yeah, didn't happen here.
No. Passenger 57.
Have not seen that in a while.
Saw it right before the pandemic at the Alamo Draft House. Absolutely awesome. Wesley Snipes. What a time. Always bet on black. And Malcolm X, which should have gotten a lot more shine in this ceremony.
Also should have been a lot shorter. It's like 3.5 hours.
It's 3 hours. I definitely didn't see it at the time. I definitely saw it on the double VHS. Love Malcolm X. Love Spike Lee. Sure. A couple other ones, and then we could go to the ceremony. Sneakers, I feel like maybe you would have liked.
Yeah, I again have not seen that in a while.
I remember feeling like it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be.
What was it hyped too much for you?
I think it was like based on the cat. Like, so I like Dan Aykroyd because he's funny from like Ghostbusters, and then it's like, oh, Sidney Poitier and like Robert Redford and all these people. But I think River Phoenix is in it too. So it's like it's like a good group. And I would love to watch it again, but I just remember being like slightly underwhelmed. And then Captain Ron, which is just a delight. Love a tropical paradise with Kurt Russell. You get enough. Oh, and one last one, Muppet Christmas Carol, which I actually saw years later, and I love it. But there you go. Great Michael Caine performance.
Yeah, I'm not hugely into the Muppets movies, but that's a good one.
I actually love the Muppets. So the Muppets I really enjoy, actually, as it turns out. Love the Muppets Take Manhattan. That one is great. Muppet Christmas Carol rules. I actually think the Jason Segel Muppets is good.
I like
the
it.
new one.
Yeah.
It's not bad. So here we are. This is now the 4th year in a row for Billy Crystal.
Yeah, and he didn't want to do it.
No kidding. Based on what the result is. So I'm reading, there's an Army Orchard column I found from 1993 that Gil Cates returns, convinces Billy to host the Oscars again. And Billy says, Gil sent me a funeral wreath saying the show is dead without you. So when you have that kind of like ego boost, I guess, or like,
no, he wrote it as a poem. It's in Inside Oscar.
Please read it, because I just feel like that sets the tone. It's because basically Gil is like, the Oscars doesn't work without you, Billy, and Billy is high on that notion and off the success of like 3 really good shows.
He didn't immediately say yes to that, because then okay. So the poem read, "Roses are red, violets are blue. The show and I are dead without you." Cates recalled, quote, I thought, oh, he'll get a kick out of that, laugh about it, maybe change his mind. Didn't hear from him, which was uncharacteristic, end quote. So then Gil Cates decides to send Billy Crystal a large box 2 days later. And quote, he opened it up and there in the box was a horse's head, and the horse's head was painted to look like his horse. And he told me the first thing that went through his head was, my God, the son of a gun killed my horse, end quote. So that's how we agreed.
So that's how we agreed. That sets the tone. It's just not good. We've watched a lot of these Billy ones. I would say like this is not good. Why don't we'll say.
Well, let's start with just the very beginning with the arrivals.
Please start with the arrivals. This one, I don't know who we've watched a lot of these. There's usually a male announcer or a female announcer. My personal preference is the female announcer. The male announcer is the man who was given. I don't know who it is, so I don't want to like besmirch this person's reputation. But he was the one who had to say that he misidentified the Dances with Wolves actor as Graham Greene. So not the greatest. The woman I feel like is a little bad.
Yeah, this one wasn't that bad. There was the distinguished Joan Plowright, but then what made this funny was immediately after Joan Plowright period was Morgan Freeman period. That's it. Former Oscar winner and media mogul husband Jane Fonda and Ted Turner.
The way that one's worded, you send it to me on text, and the way it's worded, it still makes no sense. Yeah, it sounds like
why didn't you just say former Oscar winner Jane Fonda?
Correct. It sounds like Jane Fonda is the former Oscar winner and media mogul.
Yeah. Let us edit this next time.
Grammar, folks.
Yeah. Again, still sad. 5-time Oscar nominee and a presenter tonight, Glenn Close. The man who marches to his own drummer and nominated tonight, Jack Nicholson.
Love that one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this one we referenced last night when we were doing our Emmys thing. Star of Basic Instinct and one of the industry's hottest actresses, Sharon Stone.
Sharon Stone, I would say, gosh, what a sport, because again, she is just like a break.
So then this twofer here, a double, you could say, star of Big and A League of Their Own, it's Tom Hanks. A stunning star in A League of Her Own, it's Gina Davis. That's
actually pretty clever, though. I would say Hanks here is either shooting or in the process of getting ready to shoot Philadelphia.
Well, like he and Denzel present.
They present together. Tom Hanks looks like a lead singer for a grunge cover band in this.
Yeah, he's pretty emaciated. It's also funny because you can tell that Tim Robbins is also shooting Shawshank right now because he's like full Andy mode.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Nominated 8 times tonight will hopefully be a great night for Al Pacino.
Yes.
Yes.
This is the only one I wrote down. A fine actor who's a presenter this evening and a welcome addition to any Oscar show, Raul Julia.
Mm-hmm.
R.I.P. Yeah. And the other one I wrote down, I lied. I have one more. And that's Richard Harris and Ann Turkle.
That was the last one.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it was like an aerial view too.
So this is a show that had a lot of stars, I would say, not just among the nominees. You have like Clint Eastwood and Jack Nicholson. You have like Angela Lansbury is there. Elizabeth Taylor is there. Audrey Hepburn is getting a Herschel Award. She had died right around this time. Maybe
she
like
died
a few months earlier.
Week after they announced that she was receiving it in January.
And so you have Gregory Peck there. You have Bob Hope. It's like one of these Oscar shows where you have a lot of like still living legit legends mixed with like Richard Gere, or whatever. It's just no offense, Richard Gere. He's the first person I thought of, but like a modern star. It's like you wouldn't think of like Richard Gere and Gregory Peck being at the same ceremony, but there they are because they were.
And also this time, unlike last week when we did Dance with Wolves, they actually gave a standing O to Bob Hope.
They did. And Bob Hope looked, even though it's only 2 years later, looked a lot older. He turned 90. He turned 90, but he was on stage like 2 years earlier. He was able to do like 5 minutes. They did Bob Hope doing a tight 5. This time he barely was able to get out of his seat and wave to the crowd. So definitely age catches up to you, even Bob Hope. So Billy gets brought out on stage, pulled in on an Oscar by Jack Palance, who had won the previous year. And the City Slickers music is blaring. It is the Billy show. This is like the Billy show. And Joyce, I actually like legit LOL because he does the goddamn boop boop. And I was like, I knew he did it in multiple shows. I knew I wasn't just dreaming that.
You just remember this from like osmosis. It's like
Truly is. He immediately goes in on bad crying. I just wrote bad crying game jokes immediately. It's just like there's no stopping.
There are so many of them. I mean, how can you keep track?
I was thinking like the way this ceremony happens like a few months after Bill Clinton is inaugurated as president. So it's one of these rare shows where, like I was saying to you, I think previously, like it always, the ones we've done, it always felt like there was like an election or some politics thing. This is like a lull because Clinton has won. He's now inaugurated. The right-wing machinery against him has not revved up fully yet. So it's like a real like lull in the discourse. So Billy is left with like mocking Crying Game for having like a transgender character at a time when like that is not a thing that people are familiar with. And also like just promoting his own shit, I guess. Like it just is so...
Mr. Saturday Night. He tacked it on at the end because he wants to see what it feels like to be a Best Picture nominee.
He does the songs. Let me pull up the songs he does.
They were not great.
No, it was pretty bad. He's playing to Jack a lot. He like loves having Jack there. He does Scent of a Woman. Here we didn't even do the Best Picture. These are the 5 Best Picture nominees. Scent of a Woman to the tune of I'm a Woman by Peggy Lee. Howard's End to the tune of Hooray for Hollywood. A Few Good Men to the tune of Sound Off. The Crying Game to the tune of Love is the Tender Trap. And then Unforgiven to the tune Unforgettable. And like you said, he throws in Mr. Saturday Night joke to see how it feels. It's also the Year of the Woman.
Yes, please talk about that.
So he intros it. I wrote this down. They decided, this was when the Oscars, like you had said previously, they had themes. So this year they decided Year of the Woman, we're going to do it.
Well, also because they were coming off of the election and not a lot, but several women were nominated or voted into office.
So here's how Billy introduces it. Women in film. 1992 has been a very poor year for women's parts. Some of the most talked about parts are Sharon Stone's in Basic Instinct.
Cringe.
And then like Sharon Stone's guffawing in the audience like goddamn Max Cady in Cape Fear. What an actress she is. There's no way she found that funny. It's totally insulting and reductive. Then Billy goes, he makes a reference to Kim Basinger. Did you catch that one? Mm-hmm. He's like 9 million reasons. Someone talked to Kim Basinger. I had to Google that one because Kim Basinger was ordered to pay $8.9 million for backing out of Boxing Helena. She said she was going to do it and then said she wasn't and got sued.
Great year for women.
So far, we're batting 1,000. Then he goes, it was a great year for animated movies. Then at Disney's next thing is going to be an animated Amy Fisher story, Beauty and the Middle-Aged Beast. Just awful. Those are the 3 main things I wrote down for his monologue. That was all I had.
So what they didn't include in the playlist on the Academy's YouTube page is Bob Rainey, who was the AMPA's president at the time. So he comes out and then he says, tonight, we dedicate our efforts to the women who make the magic. This year, 36 women have been nominated in 12 categories. That's not equality yet, but it's progress. And this is just text from Inside Oscar. It also skewed reasoning since 10 of those nominees were in the categories where men were not admitted, Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress. And 4 others were in the traditionally female-dominated costume design category. So then Bob continues saying, quote, today in every aspect of making and marketing movies, women are moving into more positions of influence. But women have always made vital contributions to movies. And to remind us all of the strength and breadth of those contributions, the Academy recently invited all the women who have won Oscars to a kind of reunion. So before the show, they had done this. They did a photo op, basically, like a family photo album, just of the living
Yes.
female Oscar winners. And several people showed up, including like Sally Field, like actresses, like famous people too, famous actresses. And they were all like in this Inside Oscar, they were all just like, this is like dumb. Like, but and it is, because it's like so performative and patronizing and disingenuous. Like,
So it was, this is obviously like we're looking at this from 30 years later, but it was immediately just destroyed. I'll just read from the Wikipedia page because it's a great service and source. But it was, quote, the telecast also received unfavorable reactions from various public feminist figures. In an interview with Los Angeles Daily News, author and activist Betty Friedan condemned the, quote, Year of Women theme, commenting, it has no basis in reality. Quote, on behalf of women directors, cinematographers, and producers, I resent the travesty of calling that a tribute. Likewise, the president of the National Organization for Women's Los Angeles chapter, a woman named Tammy Bruce, chastised the ceremony's feminist tribute as, quote, one of the most hypocritical, patronizing things I've seen in my whole life. Then Gil Cates said in response, the theme, quote, the theme developed and raised consciousness in a way that I think is positive, not only for the individual in general, but for the individual women in specifically. He also quoted a famous ancient Chinese proverb, later made famous by former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, saying, quote, it is better to light one candle than to curse the darkness.
sure.
They really, really thought they were doing something here.
They really, I mean, men, what do you expect? So
oh my God.
It's just just the gall, really. And then you have later Barbara Streisand presenting Best Director, and she does this whole thing like, hopefully one day you we will just be able to award people not based on gender, basically. And
Yeah.
at this point, they had still only nominated one woman for Best Director because The Piano had not come out yet. It was coming out this year in 93. And it'll be another 17 years before a woman won.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, at this point, a woman had not been nominated in cinematography, and would be another 25 years before that happened. So yeah.
This is how, and again, the tone of the show, I just found this is like I said, we've watched a lot of these. This one, I was just like, I just found the whole thing very toxic. I thought like not even because of the, like we've had like, there's a Harvey Weinstein reference again, or Kevin Spacey one, or Woody Allen, or whatever it is. But like, yeah, this one I found the show toxic because I was like, even so, like, so Billy does his bit, just not a good showing for our boy. Then Jack
Also,
Palance.
later on, in keeping the theme, when Susan Sarandon and Tim Robbins present Best Editing, well, first of all, they do this whole thing, their plea to free the Haitians locked up at Guantanamo Bay,
right,
which also riled up Gil Cates, as we learned afterwards.
Yes.
But then they segue into editing, and they give this whole speech about the contributions of female editors. And then they play a montage of movies that have been edited or co-edited by women. And they just chyron the movie titles, like, put up their damn names. What are you doing here?
So bad. This is how we'll go to the Best Picture and stuff and do all this, but I just want to go right into Jack Palance because like I just wrote this down. I was like, I can't believe this. Jack Palance comes out. He's like doing a Jack Palance bit.
Very
like,
long.
Very long. It's so, again, so indulgent to Billy and like his Billy aura, basically. And then Marissa Tomei, he does Best Supporting Actress. Marissa Tomei wins. Freaking awesome win. Love it so much. And then Billy, and she has a really great speech, I feel like. And then Billy comes out of it and goes, it comes out and he's like, I just heard from Marissa Tomei backstage. She wants to be called Marissa Rodham Tomei. Because,
and then later when she's presenting with Joe Pesci, that's how he intros her.
He does it again. It doesn't even get laughs then. It's such a stupid joke. It's so ridiculous.
It's
like
so insulting.
It's so insulting. Why is it bad that she wanted to be known as Hillary Rodham Clinton?
That's her name. That was the name. She doesn't have to take anyone's name.
That's her name. And then why is it a joke that he does twice? And why to Marissa Tomei? And why during the Year of the Woman? What is going on here? This sucks. The show sucks. It was so bad. I just couldn't take it. I thought it was such a poor taste.
It was just also so cringe when a lot of the winners kept referencing the Year of the Woman. I'm like, you don't have to do this, guys. You really don't.
Oh God. So we'll talk more about the show and the speeches and stuff, but we'll do, as we usually do, we'll go to the top award choice. Best Picture at this Oscars. We already mentioned the nominees were Unforgiven, A Few Good Men, Scent of a Woman, The Crying Game, and Howard's End.
Yeah, and I don't really have a problem with Unforgiven winning. I like that movie a lot.
I would definitely have Unforgiven winning of this 5. I actually don't really have a problem with a lot of the
I mean, I have a problem with one nominee. Really.
I mean, Scent of a Woman I don't think is a very good movie.
No, it's not.
And I'm not sure Crying Game holds up.
It has not aged well.
Not just Billy's jokes. I think the movie itself has not aged well.
Yeah. But I think it mostly got in because it just felt so different at the time, and it was like just like sort of just coasting on the secret, or like the don't spoil this movie, and the quote unquote surprise
right
element.
I'd actually say I think I don't want to speak for Neil Jordan. I think perhaps his heart was in the right place, but I think 30 years of time has shown that some of the choices are slightly problematic in the movie. By playing it as like a stunt, and by like reducing it to like or leveling it off with like comparing the Jay Davidson character's transgender identity with like Stephen Ray, like IRA secrets it's not the same. So not the greatest. The movie's probably I've not seen.
But at the time, it was just like it blew everyone's mind.
Right. I literally have not seen this movie in like
I
29 years, probably 28 years. So, I don't know if it holds up or not. I'm just guessing it's not. A Few Good Men, solid Hollywood movie. And Howard's End, good movie.
I love Howard's End. It was a very well done, one of Merchant Ivory's best.
I still think Unforgiven wins this.
Yeah.
And it's not even particularly close, I would say. This is like a Silence of the Lambs level, like obviously it won.
Yeah, and like the thing is, it wasn't like Unforgiven was sweeping the precursors or anything.
Right.
So I guess we can get to the rise of the Golden Globes this year as well.
Yeah. So they were big on Scent of a Woman, Joyce.
They were big on Scent of a Woman.
Hooah!
Yes, please do that again.
Hooah! I'll take a flamethrower to this place. Isn't that what he said?
So they so in Inside Oscar, they talk about all the freebies that studios were providing to the HFPA, basically, like we'll fly you out to like blah 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 for this press conference, and you could just schmooze with like Al Pacino and like all these stars or whatever. It wasn't just Scent of a Woman, it was like multiple movies. But the thing was, like the Critics Awards, like New York, LA, the big three, National Society and a National Board of Review, they had already announced their winners. Scent of a Woman did not win anything. And it was kind of split too. But then in comes the HFPA and it gives the Best Picture Drama to Scent of a Woman. Al Pacino wins Drama Actor. And then it won another one. I think it won 3.
Director. I think no, Clint won director.
No, Clint won director.
It won screenplay.
Did it win screenplay? Yeah, it won screenplay.
Yes,
for both.
it won screenplay.
Yeah, so it was just like, whoa, like what is happening here? So then there's like this whole section in here after it wins. Blah blah blah. Okay, so 2 weeks later, Bernard Weinrob, the New York Times' Tinseltown correspondent, expanded upon Variety's expose about the freebies, reporting that, quote, Hollywood is buzzing that numerous members of the foreign press group flew en masse to see the film and to meet Al Pacino, the star of the film, before the vote, end quote. So Variety had, matter of fact, reported that Scent of a Woman trip was a gift from Universal. The Times reported that had echoes of Rashomon. Quote, one executive said the studio paid, another said the foreign press group might have doled out some money for the airfare. And the Hollywood Foreign Press Association says it's not really sure, end quote. And the president of HFPA wondered, quote, what's the difference if he paid or not? And then the Times reporter said the junket for Scent of a Woman, quote, came so close to the group's voting for its awards, which then went to the unheralded film. So then it was like all this backlash. So much so that AJPA placed a full page ad in the trades, and it was called an open letter to the industry. And it said, quote, "The members of AJPA would like to refute strongly the suggestion that the win of Scent of a Woman at the recent Golden Globe Awards had to do with anything but the merits of the film. To insinuate otherwise does a disservice not only to the integrity of our membership, but to the artistic contributions of the film's participants." And then, it has always been easy for some of our colleagues in the domestic press to dismiss our work. Is it ignorance due to our accents? Is it unacceptable if any of our members complement their income with other work? Or in this case, is some domestic press being used by disgruntled parties? We urge them to take a long, hard look at their attitudes towards the foreign press, an attitude that we find at best condescending and at worst xenophobic.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now look where they are.
Who could have thought?
So those are the 5. Joyce, I had a list of an additional 5 for
The
best picture.
Player.
What's that?
The Player.
So I have The Player for sure, nominated for Robert Altman for director. Fantastic movie. Absolutely love it. Great Tim Robbins performance. Should have been nominated.
Same.
Great supporting performance from everybody in the movie. No one really pops, but Fred Ward legit could have been a contender. Whoopi Goldberg, I think, is amazing in it. Great score.
If SAG had existed, it should have won ensemble.
And I think it could have.
Yeah.
The other ones I had were Aladdin,
Mm-hmm.
Chaplin.
But you think that would have gotten in?
I think it would have gotten in. It had multiple nominations and Downey as an actor.
Yeah, maybe.
It also would have been a SAG nominee for ensemble.
Probably. Yeah, he won the BAFTA, which was before the Oscars. I think if it got in, it would be like 9th or 10th.
And then I have Malcolm X and A River Runs Through It, or my 10.
I have Malcolm X. I think that would get in 10. And I mean, most of these could replace Son of a Woman, really.
They're all better than Son of the Woman. And then the other 4 I wrote down just that I would not think would get in, but if I was doing it, would be Reservoir Dogs, Last of the Mohicans, Basic Instinct, and League of Their Own.
Okay.
None of them would get in.
I think like Glenn Ross could get into Best Picture.
I could see that.
And I could also see The Bodyguard getting in too, just because it was so huge.
I thought that, but I went with Aladdin for the big one because I was like, oh, that's like the.
I have Aladdin and Bodyguard.
Wow.
The top 2. I know.
Nice. I don't know I think if that was expanded to 10, my personal preference would be The Player to win Best Picture of that group.
Yeah.
It's definitely my favorite, or like Malcolm X. Like I said, I don't think Unforgiven is bad. I love it. It's actually really good. But
yeah, no, it was a really good movie, and I like that it doesn't trade in absolutes. Again, it's just like elevates the genre.
Yeah.
It's not just like good cowboy, bad cowboy.
But The Player is so good.
It's
oh my
so
gosh.
good. And I mean, I love any satire. I think, they probably just couldn't handle it because it was mocking them.
I thought that, but I was like, they're all in it. So many people are in it. Half the industry is in the movie.
It's not the actors. It's like the establishment,
Right. That's true. For Best Director, Joyce, we kind of talked about this with the Best Picture. This is one of the years where pretty much level like right on. Everyone the same except for Rob Reiner. It was Clint for Unforgiven. He obviously wins. Neil Jordan for Crying Game. James Ivory for Howard's End. Martin Brest for Scent of a Woman, which I'm going to take as a makeup nomination because he wasn't nominated for Midnight Run. And then Robert Altman for The Player instead of Rob Reiner for A Few Good Men. Billy, in one of his song parodies, makes a big show that Rob was snubbed. It feels like totally ungenuine because I'm like, they don't take Rob Reiner seriously as a director. So it wasn't really a snub. And I'm like, I like Rob Reiner movies. They're all really good. He had this amazing run in the 80s and 90s, but he did not need to get nominated for Best Director. It's a play. It's a script and a play. This show movie.
I think he did a good job translating it to the screen, even though it's not like totally stagey.
It's not totally stagey, but I'm not. I really, again, this is gonna sound like insulting to Rob Reiner as a director, but I'm like, when you have Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson, and Demi Moore, and then every supporting player is like, it's Kevin Bacon, JT Walsh, it's like down the line, they're just killer actors. What do you really do? You're just like, Jack, go do your scene. You did it. It's great.
I mean, I think, just in retrospect, he probably should have been nominated at least once during his run. And
I definitely agree with that.
Nomination.
Yeah. Additional directors I wrote down. So Rob Reiner for sure, because obviously he's the best picture nominee, even though I'm just killing him slightly. Spike Lee for Malcolm X. This feels like if this happened now, I can't imagine he wouldn't have gotten nominated. I don't know.
It was just everything about the way, like his really like his like antagonism with like the press at the time, and like how he got the film made and everything was it was rough back then.
Yeah. Richard Attenborough for Chaplin, Robert Redford for River Runs Through It. And then I put down Penny Marshall for A League of Their Own, because I just think that I honestly think A League of Their Own.
She didn't get in for Awakenings.
She didn't get in for Awakenings, but A League of Their Own is a much better movie. And like, I actually think it's really solid. And then Michael Mann for Last Mohicans, but would never happen.
No. But it'll be cool.
It would have been cool. I think nowadays, if it was like right now and the same list of movies came out, Mira Nair would have like a big push for Mississippi Masala, for sure. Who else did you think of? Anybody?
No, like those were basically it.
It's tough when you talk about these, because I'm just like, obviously Clint won and deserved to win. Unlike Kevin Costner, totally fine with Clint winning an Oscar for this.
Yeah, and in a way, this was also like, it felt like it was Clint's time, and he finally just like made that movie, and like he is the sole producer on this movie too.
It's pretty crazy when they announce Best Picture and it's Clint Eastwood and just rolls up by himself.
And like Jack Nicholson doesn't even say Unforgiven first; he says Clint Eastwood.
Clint.
Yeah.
So good. Why don't we do Best Actor? So Al Pacino wins for Scent of a Woman. The other nominees here are, I would argue, all better, but here are the nominees. Robert Downey Jr. for Chaplin. Robert Downey Jr. never looking more like Kieran Culkin than he did at these Oscars, I feel like. I'm assuming he was shooting Home for the Holidays, maybe, at this time.
Or he also presents with Alfre Woodard 23 years before they meet again in Captain America: Civil War. So
great moment. Clint for Unforgiven, which is actually an underrated performance.
Yeah.
And truly could have won here. Honestly, he's so good at it.
He would have won. He is very good in it, but I think it's kind of I think we've talked about this before. It's one of those like lead performances in the Best Picture winner that just won't win.
Right.
Yeah.
Stephen Ray for Crying Game, and then Denzel for Malcolm X. If I was doing this now, I would put Denzel for Malcolm X. I think
that's what a lot of people say.
And I think even perhaps Pacino would say, because it's such a great performance. He's so good. And it's like, man, getting Denzel to play Malcolm X, what a coup. And then just like killing the role. It's like so good. He's so good in it. I don't know. I just think he could have won, and he should have won. So Pacino obviously had the narrative that he never won. These were the nominations before Scent of a Woman, Joyce. He had The Godfather, 1973, Best Supporting Actor. Did not win.
As dramatized in The Offer.
As dramatized in that great show, The Offer. Instead, who won that year? Joel Grey, Cabaret. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's Michael Corleone, but sure. Serpico, 74. Nominated for Best Actor. Godfather Part 2, 75. Nominated for Best Actor. Loses to Art Carney, I believe, right?
Yes.
Tough Beat. Dog Day Afternoon, 1976. Justice for All, 1980. Then he doesn't get nominated for a full decade, but honestly could have won 3 Oscars in that 7-year stretch that we just talked about. Like some of the best performances of all time and some of the greatest movies made of the decade / all time. Dick Tracy nominee, 91. Then he comes back with a double nomination in 93. Glengarry Glen Ross and Scent of a Woman. And then he's not nominated again until The Irishman. So really, like, this was it. Get Al an Oscar and get him out of here.
This was Yeah, it's like, we're sorry, we fucked up 20 years.
Now, Glengarry Glen Ross, he's awesome in. Could have won for
Yes,
that. Would have been
like, and
happy.
he honestly, if it weren't for Gene in Unforgiven, I'd be like, give it to him for Glengarry Glen Ross.
And it would have felt appropriate probably to have him win.
Yeah, this is a total makeup Oscar.
Scent of
And
Woman is the definition of makeup Oscar.
yeah. Okay, first of all, let's talk about that movie. It is way too long.
I haven't seen it in so long.
I haven't
very
seen this
good.
in a really long time, but I just remember it being so long. Actually, a lot of movies this year were really long, like Malcolm X. Howard's End is also long too, but I think it's well edited. But there's no need for Cinema to be that long, and it's just like him like hamming up. Yeah, and it's just funny to think that it really was the Globes that sent him on this path. Like they did it.
It's unbelievable. And the other thing that's funny to me is that not only it's like, it's shocking to me that they just gave him the Oscar for Scent of Woman and then didn't even think of nominating him again. Now, say what you will about Al Pacino. Obviously, he's made a lot of questionable movies, I'd say, in the last like 3 decades, but certainly made enough.
There's like Donnie Brasco.
Certainly made enough really good stuff that he could heat Donnie Brasco. You know, I don't have his IMDb up, but I know there are more than those two.
The Insider,
Devil's Advocate, lol, but also awesome. Any Given Sunday.
Yes.
You know,
it's really most late 90s, really.
Carlito's Way. I don't know. I just think there's so many other opportunities there would have been that they didn't even nominate him for any of these other movies. It's really weird
like
to me.
We did it like it's sort of like, I mean, that happened with Susan Sarandon too, like we talked about. Except she actually won for a good movie.
Correct.
And a great performance. And then she still hasn't been nominated since.
And Al, the thing that made me like kind of sad, not sad. I'm very happy Al Pacino has an Oscar. Obviously, he's like one of my favorite actors.
This was not about like, let's give Al Pacino an Oscar for this movie and this performance. It's just, let's give Al Pacino an Oscar.
And he was so moved, and I thought the speech was really excellent. Like you could tell during the show that he was nervous, I think, and then like he wins, he gets like whatever. He actually he gives a shout out to the Associated Blind for their generous support, which I was like, that's actually really nice. And like the fact that he was thoughtful enough at the time, like nowadays, I'm sure it would be a fraught thing to have a seeing person playing a blind person. But I think like the fact that he actually had thought enough to be like, let me go talk to people who are actually blind.
So he had a full speech out.
Right? Like I thought that was good. And then he has this really nice speech at the end where he talks about like all the people who helped him in life. And then he talks about growing up in the South Bronx and met a young girl. And he's like, she said that I had encouraged her. And that's not necessarily by my work, but just by the fact that we come from the same place. And I just can't forget that girl. And I can't forget the kids out there who may be thinking tonight that if I can do it, if he can do it, I can do it. So this is a really proud and hopeful moment for me because I want to thank the Academy for giving us a gift of encouragement. And this is a great gift to me. I thank you all. Really, thank you. It's like, oh, Al Pacino really touched by this Oscar.
Yeah, and I like to think that because he did have to wait so long that he has a different perspective on it. Like, I don't think he would have given that speech or reacted in that same way had he won for like The Godfather or
no.
Godfather.
Also, I think he was high on Quaaludes, he said at the time of The Godfather, if I remember correctly. I think that's like a famous anecdote. That
so if you could give him an Oscar for one of the earlier nominations, what would it be?
I mean, for me, I think I would do Godfather Part 2 because I think him in that movie is like unbelievable. And then I actually have to see who won the year of Dog Day Afternoon.
That was Jack. See, this is my problem because I actually prefer him in Dog Day Afternoon. But I also
Jack
really
in Chinatown.
Jack in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Honestly, similar performances. I don't know who I would take more.
So I think it'll be, I guess, like easiest or whatever to give it to him for Godfather Part 2 instead of Art Carney.
I mean, I think the other one you could do, but I mean, Jack Lemmon in Save the Tiger is pretty good. Mm-hmm. And Robert Redford maybe could have won for Sting, and that's a great lineup. But I'm like, he's really great in Serpico, Pacino too. I don't know.
Yeah, I know, but I do like Jack Lemmon in Save the Tiger.
Right.
Who was not nominated here for Glengarry Glen
And
Ross.
should have been, because he's
Yeah.
great. I mean, if I was going to give Al Pacino an Oscar, I would have said, like, I think, yeah, Godfather, probably part 2. But I want to see what they missed of his, like he kind of fell off the map, obviously, in the 80s for a little bit.
Well, there was Scarface.
I mean, honestly, I would maybe done Scarface because it's pretty great. He's really going for it. I don't know. I do think you can make a run for Donnie Brasco. He's wonderful in that movie. I love him in Any Given Sunday, though obviously wasn't going to win like Best Actor for it. The Insider, I think you could have made a play that he wasn't even nominated. We haven't done the 99 one or 2000 Oscars yet, but I think Pacino probably should have gotten nominated for Insider.
A lot of people should have been nominated for the Insider.
It's just a crime. And I guess here's the thing. I was thinking about this too. If he doesn't, if Denzel Washington wins for Malcolm X here, right? Which is
well, this is what everyone talks about. If he had won for Malcolm X, would he have won for Training Day?
Would he have won for Training Day, Joyce?
No.
Who would have won then? I actually think he would have won.
But I don't think it was the same, because this is like we're changing the past. We're doing a time heist, because I think like the narrative would have been different had he already won a lead Oscar. He would have won 2 Oscars in supporting and lead 3 years.
So here's what I think would have happened then. If he doesn't win for Training Day, first of all, if he wins for Malcolm X, does Will Smith win for Ali?
And then he doesn't win this year.
And then Andrew Garfield wins this year, and he doesn't get slapped. Nobody gets slapped.
Is this your way of getting Andrew Garfield an Oscar for Tick Tick Boom?
Well, because the other nominees the year Denzel won it for Training Day, which is 2002, is Russell Crowe for A Beautiful Mind, who is perfectly adequate in that movie.
And he also
had won.
And then he assaulted a BAFTA producer.
Sean Penn for I Am Sam, which no. Holy God. Will Smith for Ali and Tom Wilkinson for In the Bedroom.
I really like In the Bedroom a lot.
Definitely the film Twitter pick is Tom Wilkinson, but I think you can make the case that Will Smith as Ali would have won if Denzel did not win for Training Day.
I mean, you really could have, because I remember when those nominations came out, and it was like Will Smith's first nomination, you know, and it was like a huge deal, like huge star.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you would just have to think like they wouldn't go back to Russell.
I don't think they would, and especially because it's Russell's third.
It's his third consecutive nomination,
and it's his worst performance. It's his worst performance of those 3 nominations.
Yeah, and it's also funny because he was like sweeping everything. Because then for Gladiator, he wasn't winning like everything. That was a very split race, and he won that. Yeah.
And Gladiator rules, and he's awesome in it. And Insider rules, and he's awesome in that. Anyway, that's Best Actor, Joyce. The other people I had written down. Anthony Hopkins for Howard's End.
Yes, please.
Tim Robbins for The Player. I actually put both of them in over Pacino and Stephen Ray, probably. So, and Tom Cruise for A Few Good Men, I think is actually really quite good. Michael Douglas for Basic Instinct, and Joe Pesci for My Cousin Vinny.
I would do Joe Pesci, and I would also do Michael Keaton for Batman Returns.
Great pick. I'll have a Batman Returns, 2 Batman Returns performers.
I'm going to be mentioning Batman Returns again.
Yes, same. all these people we mentioned are better than Al Pacino and Scent of Woman. Hoo-ah.
You know.
But another meme before a meme. Everyone memed it. Hoo-ah.
Yeah, again, yeah, that's all you know that about that movie, that hoo-ha. And again, Crying Game. It's like
Crying Game, and then hoo-ha.
Crying Game, A Few Good Men, hoo-ha.
You can't handle the truth. Hoo-ha. Best Actress choice. This is a solid list. The nominees were Emma Thompson for Howard's End. She won. Loved her winning. Loved her speech. Emma Thompson, more Oscars. Give Emma Thompson more Oscars.
The greatest. And always presented by Anthony Hopkins. Please.
Catherine Deneuve for Indochine. Mary McDonnell for Passion Fish. Michelle Pfeiffer for Love Field. And Susan Sarandon for Lorenzo's Oil. And I'll tell you what, at the time, and even now, those 3 movies are all the same to me. They all run together. I have no idea which
Well, this
one is
was
which.
also, as Billy referenced in his monologue, like not a lot of great female parts.
No. To fill out the list, here's what I came up with. I have two absolutely should have got nominated, and I would have, God bless Emma Thompson. Sharon Stone should have got nominated for Basic Instinct, and then she should have won. It's an incredible performance. She's so good. I love Sharon Stone. She's a fantastic actress. It is an explosive star-making performance. She balances the tones, plays this incredibly ridiculous character, and just owns the movie. It's a wonderful performance. You really should watch this movie. It's so good, Joyce.
I've
No,
seen
I mean, like,
Basic
again,
Instinct.
now. Like, it's so good. And Whitney Houston for The Bodyguard, I think, should have got nominated.
Whitney gives one of the better singer turn actor
Yeah.
performances.
I mean, she's like a real presence in the movie. It is definitely, I think Lady Gaga's a better actress, but I would put it on the same level as Lady Gaga in A Star Is Born.
If that movie came out now, what would that campaign be like for The Bodyguard and Whitney Houston?
It would be a lot of I went method on set, and like I'm in therapy now, and all these different things, and fame, and it would just be the actors on actors for that, for Variety, would have been unhinged. It would have been Whitney Houston and like I don't even know who, Zendaya or something, put them together.
I have Meryl Streep for Death Becomes Her.
Wow. The other person I had was Gina Davis for League of Their Own.
I also have her too.
So if we put those three in and four, I mean, like I said, I love Emma Thompson. I think the others are all interchangeable to me. I don't know.
Yeah, this was like a pretty obvious win for Emma Thompson. Although in Inside Oscar, some people were predicting Susan. And then on the red carpet, someone told Susan that like she was like predicted to win, and she's like, really, who? Because all I hear is Emma. Emma Thompson, great in Howard's End, just like a luminous performance. And this was really her big breakthrough, not just because she won an Oscar, but just because she had been so associated with Kenneth Branagh, to whom she was married at the time, and they had done a lot of films together. They were like the British power couple.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also nominated this year for a short film. He was not there because he was doing, I think, Hamlet or something back home.
And he was watching on a satellite dish, I think she said.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so this was like the beginning of her like international fame.
Right.
Because then the next year she gets double noms.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait to talk about Remains of the Day, one of her and Anthony Hopkins' best films. So
I guess we'll do that next week.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good year. I can't wait for that one too. A lot of good movies that year. I don't know, and I mean, I had nobody else really. I don't know. I think you could put these people in though. Whitney's. I mean, Sharon. I honestly was like, Sharon Stone should win best. She's so good. I love Sharon Stone so much. We did not respect Sharon Stone enough as a culture in the 90s. She was a tremendous star and a great actor.
She became famous at the wrong time.
So here's the thing. She actually was like, I mean this, like she really is like a major, massive star. Like you cannot take your eyes off her on camera. I think she's so compelling as a performer. And then she's also a really good actor. I think she actually is so like we saw with like the Oscars, everything's going to talk about how hot she is and everything. And obviously like Basic Instinct is like, she's completely naked for a lot of the movie, but like, man, she's such a good
also
actor.
brought out when she has claimed that she did not know
Yes.
that
she
would be filmed.
She's so good in it. It's just like she's a really good actor.
I agree.
Great in Casino, great in Quick and the Dead, great in this, like on and on.
She just has this like very effortless confidence, and you just can't really teach that to
She's
someone.
also so likable as a performer, even when she's playing terrible people. Mm-hmm. I find that really compelling. Like you're like not rooting for her in Basic Instinct, but you're not like, this lady sucks. You're like, yeah. She has that like Ray Liotta. She actually has that like Ray Liotta thing we were talking about with Goodfellas, where it's like, you shouldn't be drawn to this person, but like they're so like, charming.
Like Gene Hackman in Unforgiven too. Like this guy is a sadistic asshole.
Yeah.
But you're also kind of sad when he dies.
Correct. It's a really talent. Like, I mean, she's like on that level. And I think like this 90, like that she doesn't have an Oscar from this, like her 90s fame is like kind of a bummer. I'd say, because
Yeah, it's like she's kind of like due for like a great like meaty supporting part in like an indie
I'm hoping that she'll get that guest actor nomination for
flight
flight attendant. And I hope that gets her like a rebound kind of renaissance, let's say. Best supporting actor, Joyce.
Our guy Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman, no notes. Great win. The other nominees are Jay Davidson for The Crying Game. Jay Davidson made 2 movies, basically, The Crying Game, and then was the villain in Stargate, and then retired. I found an article from a few years ago by Kevin Paloe for Yahoo from 2019, where he talked about Neil Jordan, and Neil Jordan said, very wisely, actually, Jay made one other movie for which he made a ton of money. That was Stargate. I think he made $1 million. He then said, look, this is not for me, and went back to his life. So good for Jay Davidson.
Yeah.
Even though he had to sit there and get mocked for 3.5 hours in front of 1 billion people, as Richard Gere said.
There's like a whole section in Inside Oscar about like, will he or will he not attend? Because this is just like not his scene, you know?
Right.
And also they were, again, like we said, they were still trying to keep this a secret after nominations.
Correct. Jack Nicholson for A Few Good Men, fabulous performance. Like, this is a really good category because I'm like, you have Jack for A Few Good Men and Al Pacino for Glengarry Glen Ross.
And Gene Hackman.
And Gene Hackman. All 3 of those are like all-time performances. And if any of them won, I'd be like, sure. Like, I think Gene Hackman obviously deserved to win. But, man, those other 2 are really great. And then David Paymer is the square peg for a round hole, winning for Mr. Saturday Night.
Winning.
I mean, sorry, nominated for Mr. Saturday Night. I just did a announcer from last week when what's his face was an Oscar winner.
Ron Silver.
Ron Silver Oscar winner. David Paymer for Mr. Saturday Night playing Billy Crystal's brother. So I have some suggestions on who to put in.
As do I.
The 2 I really were focused on were Tom Hanks for A League of Their Own and Danny DeVito for Batman Returns.
I also have Danny DeVito for Batman Returns.
Great performance. Totally memorable. Should have gotten in.
It's funny because when I was thinking about A League of Their Own, I was like, if they were going to nominate that movie in any category, it would have been for Tom Hanks.
It would have. And
ironically.
he probably should have got nominated. He's so good in it.
Yes,
he's
like
really like pre-Hanks, obviously. Like, he's still comedy Hanks.
He hasn't won yet. Mm-hmm.
He hasn't won yet, and he's still not taken seriously, I think, as an actor or dramatic actor. No. But he's great in A League of Their Own. Yeah. And if I put both Danny DeVito and Tom Hanks in, I guess I would take out David Paymer and Jay Davidson.
Mm-hmm. I also have Robin Williams for Aladdin, voice acting.
Also very well done. And I had mentioned him earlier, and I have him on my list too.
Yeah. And then I have, are you ready for this?
Yes.
Lane Smith, not for My Cousin Vinny, but for The Mighty Ducks. Big year for Lane Smith. No, you have to watch it. No, he's so good. So he plays, if you don't know, Jack Riley, the coach of the Hawks.
Yes.
Gordon Momme's old coach. And he's just like such a dick, like the villain, but it's such a great, fun villain performance. Like, he's such a jackass, like so devious. There's obviously a lot of repressed anger going on. And just a conniving jerk, hard ass, like riding these kids. His motto is, it's not worth winning if you can't win big. Mm-hmm. In the flashbacks in the beginning, when like little Gordon Bombay has to take the penalty shot, like he tells him, now if you miss this shot, you're not just letting me down, you're letting your whole team down too. It's like this pressure you put on me.
Lane Smith was such a great character actor.
So great. I love him so much. And he died really young of ALS, sadly, in 2000.
Very sad. He's so good in My Cousin Vinny. I absolutely love him.
And this is like a complete opposite performance, even though he's like sort of the enemy in My Cousin Vinny as the prosecutor, but this is like full on jerk. He's just win at all costs, plays dirty, and he has like his money scene, like this will be his Oscar clip, is when he confronts Gordon Bombay after they realize that Adam Banks, the best player on the Hawks, should be on the Ducks because of the strict lines. And he just like lays into Gordon Bombay about like, why did you quit? I taught you how to win. I taught you how to score. I taught you how to go for the W. And then he says, you could have been one of the greats. Now look at you. You're not even a has-been. You never was. Like, great. Sick as burn.
Really great burn. Here's so I think if this was a few years later, when it was the Independence Day, Joyce, I think you could have made a case if like the same list of movies was not like up, you would have at least one or two of the Reservoir Dogs guys.
Yeah,
And
so the thing
also,
was that this was like the nascent stages of independence.
they actually mentioned that Billy mentioned, I think, in his monologue, he's like, Rise of the Independence. It's like, wait, just wait, Billy, when you got effing English patient up there, you know, it's like,
Just wait until you see what Harvey's gonna do.
I wrote down all the guys for Reservoir Dogs. I think if it was like 1996 instead of this year, or
If he had
1997,
debuted in 96, yeah.
I think Michael Madsen would have gotten nominated for Reservoir Dogs, and maybe Steve Buscemi. I don't think Roth and Keitel would have gotten
in that year.
If it was like, if Reservoir Dogs came out in like 1997 or 1996, I think it could have gotten one or two of these guys in.
Yeah.
And I think Roth would have been like a tweener because he's like the lead. So he's probably not strong enough for a lead, and not enough for not enough for supporting.
In supporting, I guess, yeah, we could drop James Woods.
And then the other person I wrote down was like, what about Billy Bob Thornton for One False Move?
Wow.
He wouldn't get in, but I'm like, I think if it was a few years later, he could have gotten in.
Yeah. I mean, we know how much they love Billy Bob.
Damn, they love that guy.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Supporting actress, Joyce, we talked about this earlier. Marissa Tomei wins for My Cousin Vinny. Goddamn, what a win. Love it so much. I can't believe for years people are so, what a celebration of Year of the Woman, where you're so sexist you think that Jack Palance is so dumb he read the wrong name.
It's so dumb and ageist as well. That like,
and he doesn't even, I gotta say, he does a better job reading and doing, even though does too long of a bit, he does a better job. He doesn't stumble at all. He just is like, Marissa Tomei.
No, and it's actually a very classy presentation.
Though I will say, I think he kind of got Judy Davis.
I think he just read the next line first, but he corrected himself. He said Joan, and then he was like Judy Davis.
That part, but he also was like, it's the first time we ever have 5 international actors.
Oh, yeah.
4 English actresses and someone from Brooklyn. And Judy Davis is pissed because she's Australian, and she did not look happy with that joke.
No. But also before his punchline, Marissa was also confused. But it's a good punchline. Yeah, no notes on this win. This is obviously a huge shocker. It's so surprising that everyone has to try to bring her down and say that Jack Palance read the wrong name. So and we don't know that what would happen if the wrong name was read.
Who would have won, Joyce? Who was supposed to win? Judy Davis? Is that really who they expected to win?
Joan Plowright.
Or Joan Plowright?
It was like the slight favorite because she won the Globe.
I mean, give me a break. Like, I feel like I look at this list and I'm like, no kidding, Marissa Tomei won. Like, it's such a wonderful performance.
To harken back to our guy Billy Bob, when you listen to when the nominees are read, she gets the loudest applause of the 5, not as loud as Billy Bob's, but still the loudest. She gets cheers.
She gets legit cheers.
Fan favorite performance. And
it's a wonderful performance.
It's so great because it's also a comedic performance, and we know they don't go for those all the time.
I gotta say, I've watched that movie a million times. She's so good in it. It's like, God, she's just so confident and so funny, and like matches Job has she beat for beat. Like, it's really great.
She has the best scene in the movie, like the court scene.
The court scene is great. It's just like, she's so good.
Yeah, and I know, like, you know, some of the theories were like, oh, she won because she's the only American in the lineup. And I'm like, maybe, I don't think they really think like that. I think they just really love that performance. Like, this was like the little movie that could, you know, like no one expecting it to have this staying power, especially now, like 30 years later. Like, who is watching, I mean, I like Howard's End, but most people have not watched that movie. I don't know anyone who has seen Husbands and Wives or Enchanted April or Damage.
At all? I mean, I've seen Husbands and Wives, and
I've seen it, but like, I mean, most of my friends, I can guarantee you, if I ask most of my friends, they have not seen these other movies.
I mean, I have not seen Damage. I gotta say, I'm just saying, like, I'm not. This was
also like a big year for Miranda Richardson, because it was like, oh, what was she got nominated for? Because she was also in Enchanted
Crying Game, right?
Yeah, in Crying Game.
Yeah. So, like I said, I mean, like, on paper, again, Pacino won an honorary Oscar basically here. but Pacino, Emma Thompson, Marissa Tomei, and Gene Hackman. That's like the best four. Those actors. That's like the best four actors we've had, I think, doing this.
I would say like 3 of them went to the best performances in those categories.
Yes.
And then the other one just went to a guy who should have won an Oscar for better performances 20 years ago.
Yes. But still like a really solid list of winners. I'm trying to think if I wrote anything down of these from these speeches.
For supporting actress, well, we have to nominate Michelle Pfeiffer for Batman Returns.
So definitely Michelle Pfeiffer for Batman Returns. And here's what I had: Michelle Pfeiffer for Batman Returns and Rosie Perez for White Men Can't Jump. Legendary performance. If Rosie Perez is in there, I still think Marissa Tomei wins, but it would be a little closer, I'd say.
Maybe.
Really good in White Men Can't Jump.
I kind of feel like it wasn't that close at all for Marissa.
Not with that group, but I wonder if you put Michelle Pfeiffer in there, does it actually get close?
I don't know if they're ready yet to award a comic book performance.
And the other two I wrote down are personal favorites of mine: Lori Petty in A League of Their Own. But I know people think she's so obnoxious, probably. And Bridget Fonda for Singles. Joyce, I was a huge Bridget Fonda fan. Very much love that actress. She was great.
But yeah, no, I'm glad that Marissa has now been vindicated thanks to La La Land and Moonlight. So.
Yes. I thought you were going to say because of Aunt May and Spider-Man. She's so good.
I mean, yes, R.I.P. Aunt May and Spider-Man. So you need to be an Oscar nominee to play Aunt May in any Spider-Man film.
Yes. I wonder in the next one, maybe they'll replace Aunt May in the multiverse or something, right? We can do screenplay here if you'd like, or
screenplay presented by it was a bi-coastal ceremony.
So again, they reunite. Like I said, this show is running on fumes. I honestly think it's not the greatest one. So they have Dustin Hoffman and Anne Bancroft reunite for Graduate to present in the Rainbow Room in New York. Oh gosh, deadly.
Yeah, because they start reading the nominees and they pause for applause and no one applauds.
And it's just so rough. So the nominees for original screenplay are Crying Game, Neil Jordan, he wins. Husbands and Wives, Woody Allen, the customary Woody nomination, right in the heart of the time. This is the scandal time for Woody.
Yeah, the Dylan Farrow,
yes,
Farrow
allegations, yeah. And he had split with Mia. This is the last movie he did with Mia. Just all kinds of yikes. Lorenzo's Oil, George Miller and Nick Enright, Passion Fish, John Sayles, and Unforgiven, David Webb Peoples. So this is like, again, we've talked about original screenplay going to the cool movie that is not going to win Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of alternates, starting with Basic Instinct and My Cousin Vinny and League of Their Own. If you've made it this far in this episode,
I would nominate. Yeah, I think My Cousin Vinny would get nominated today.
I think A League of Their Own would too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Basic Instinct honestly could too. It's so good. The script is great. Joe Esterhaus, I think, was not very well liked in the industry because he was like a Shane Black type, making a lot of money for his script. So, and then Reservoir Dogs. I mean, if it was in now, I think that would get that's an easy Tarantino nomination.
Oh yeah, and they love him in writing. Just
yeah. And if I was knocking movies out, I'd knock a whole bunch out. Husbands and Wives, Lawrence's Oil, Passion Fish. Hit the road, Jack.
The whole category.
Hit the road, Jack. We got other guys coming in.
Also, Neil Jordan was like going to the bathroom when this category was announced.
Incredible. Neil Jordan does not thank Jay Davidson. Tough beat.
And also the camera, because they didn't know where Neil Jordan was. When it cuts back to LA, the camera is on Jay Davidson.
Adapted screenplay. Howard's End wins for Ruth I'm gonna butcher this name. I'm gonna pull it.
Ruth Javala.
Great. And then Enchanted April nominee, The Player nominee, River Runs Through It nominee, and Scent of a Woman nominee. Well, thank God Scent of a Woman did not win. This was always going to be Ruth's. Yes, but I would have given it to The Player, personally. Yeah, The Player would be a good win. And they obviously also did not nominate Aaron Sorkin for adapting his own play. So Sorkin and I thought Spike Lee for Malcolm X would have gotten nominated if this was like now. Mm-hmm.
Also, can I read that amazing Sorkin quote?
Yes, love it so much.
So, okay, so he's obviously at this time, Aaron Sorkin was a newbie in Hollywood. So it says, being in Hollywood was a completely new experience for Sorkin, who admitted to the Los Angeles Times that he wasn't, quote, part of the scene. But don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely the sort of person who would love to go to their parties. I find the money and level of attention very seductive. I'm materialistic and I love to drive a Porsche, end quote.
I mean,
Yeah.
at least he's honest. And then that was it basically. You know, I have no other notes. Aladdin wins a bunch of songs, right? Whole New World.
Yeah, Holy World Deserve. I have some notes on original score though.
So let's go there. Alan Menken wins for Aladdin.
Yeah,
Jerry
again,
Goldsmith for Basic Instinct. Hell yes.
Great score. Great score.
John Barry for Chaplin. This is when John Barry is just racking up nominations. He won when we did this for Dance with Wolves, I believe, last week. Howard Zinn, Richard Robbins, and River Runs Through It, Mark Isham.
Yeah, so I would nominate Bram Stoker's Dracula, a great score. Death Becomes Her, another great score by Alan Silvestri.
Yes.
Underrated, really, for even though he's done so many great scores. And then Are You Ready? The Mighty Ducks by David Newman.
Wow.
Great score. You need to listen to it.
I was going to say My Cousin Vinny. I actually don't even know who did the score, but it's so great. The theme rules. Randy Edelman did the score. So he also did he was in the music department for Last Mohicans. Yeah, I'm always like, this is when Disney's winning scores. Like obviously like Hans Zimmer won for Lion King. I don't think of these movies as having great scores though, personally.
Well, as we know, when we did, was it 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
The Braveheart year, that's why they split.
Yes.
Score into dramatic and comedic, because people were getting annoyed that Disney was dominating.
But I don't know why Disney was dominating these, honestly.
I think
because people equate the songs to the
was that like they thought people were just voting for the songs, which are great and are deserved winners, but the underscore is kind of similar sometimes. You know, it's just they take like the same theme or like they're writing a song using theme, so they're kind of similar. And I think like, you know, those movies do have probably the most music.
Yeah, I mean they do. Whole New World wins for Aladdin over Friend Like Me. What do you think about that?
That's totally fine. That's the famous song that everyone knows from. It was like I had to learn that in piano, A Whole New World.
It is a great song. I like I said, Aladdin still cooks. It's a fun watch, and the songs are good. Anything else here, Joyce? Makeup goes to Dracula. Editing goes to Joel Cox for Unforgiven.
So what one thing I like about this year though is that Unforgiven, even though it was the big winner, obviously it won 4 awards, it did not dominate. It did not sweep below the line. So we had really a nice spreading of the wealth here. So you have A River Runs Through It for cinematography, a good win. Dracula for costume design. Howard Zinn, very deserving art direction win, now known as production design. Just gorgeous set pieces in there. Sound to Last of the Mohicans. Makeup, Dracula, visual effects, Death Becomes Her, and Unforgiven takes editing. So it wasn't complete dominance.
No, it's a solid list, and like I said, these are like really good movies. I actually think there's a lot of good movies here. It's so funny, like we've had so many of these where the movies are bad and like the show has been really fun, and this is the opposite. I feel like the show is not good and the movies are actually really good.
Should we talk about the disqualification?
I briefly looked at that, honestly. Billy made a joke about it. It's some very xenophobic, racist comment, I felt like.
So they had to disqualify a film from foreign language because it was actually Argentinian, or no, so it was Argentinian, right? Or no, am I mixing this up?
I honestly don't remember. We could look it up. Hang on.
And so it was a place in the world, and they they basically just like went next door
Right.
to get submitted. Yeah, it's from Argentina, and then they went to Uruguay, and it was submitted as a Uruguayan film, and then it was nominated, and they realized that, oh, it's actually not from Uruguay, it's from Argentina, so it got disqualified.
It's bad. The show ends, and then I wrote this down. The feed on YouTube, you can watch all these on the Academy YouTube page. It's just literally ripped off like the ABC affiliate in LA, basically. And so there's a promo for Nightline, Barbara Walters. Later on Nightline, the Oscars celebrate women and the movies. But is that a joke? My special guest, Goldie Hawn, tonight.
That made me laugh.
Great stuff. It takes so many twists and turns, and I love it so much. And it is right. It was not a joke, but it is a joke because it was terrible the way he handled it.
Yeah, that was rough. I want to mention the honorary awards, especially
Yes.
to Elizabeth Taylor and Audrey Hepburn.
Yes.
Great choices for their work with AIDS, AMFAR, and UNICEF, respectively. And obviously, Audrey died, and so her son accepted. But so I guess it's sort of nice that they were getting this in, I guess, the year of the woman, but it's also kind of like they've sort of like pivoted their careers because they were aging.
I thought that too. I was actually, this is so weird, like in my mind, and again, because of like the way Hollywood, I think I'll chalk this up to the way Hollywood treats women. I was like, in my mind, Audrey Hepburn, when she died, was 1,000 years old, and she was so young, and
She was
like 63 years old. That's really young. I mean, Meryl Streep is how old today? Like 70 probably? 73 years old today. So like Meryl Streep is still like crushing it, making a ton of movies, and is like a major star. She's probably one of like the 10 most famous or like bankable actors or whatever actresses working. And Audrey Hepburn at 63 is basically like, to me, at 14, 15, a retired person who was known for being more associated with like UNICEF, which I knew, and like AMFAR, than like
yeah, and Elizabeth Taylor was 61.
And that's nuts to me, because they seem like they're just put out to pasture, basically.
Well, yeah, that was like the whole, because the other thing was you have Clint winning, Gene Hackman winning, and they were in their 60s.
Yes.
Like they're still winning competitive Oscars.
And making movies, and being able to make movies that are like legitimately like moving the dial.
Yeah.
Like, you know what
and
I
like
mean?
we all
Like,
know like what happened with like Liz in the 60s, with like
right.
her hair and everything. And then it was like, no, you're like ostracized. Like they did it to Ingrid Bergman as well with like her affair. And
Right. It's
eventually
just very,
welcomed them back. Yeah.
it's very weird. And I was like shocked. That thing about that Audrey Hepburn died so young, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that, because like she was not a significant actor, obviously, at the
but
time.
that's just what happens. I mean,
Right.
you watch Feud. You saw what happened to their careers as they aged.
Unbelievable.
So,
I mean, like, what was her last? I'm looking it up now. I'm sure people are like, "You're an idiot. How do you not know this?"
But also, like, I would say, like, when you're a kid, when you're young, like, everyone just seems ancient to you, no matter how old they are.
I mean, she made like not a lot of movies, Joyce. In my lifetime, she was in 1, 2, 3 theatrical movies.
Yeah.
So
because there's women, when you hit 40,
see ya.
Yeah, find something else to do.
That's all I had. This was like I said, really fun revisiting this year. I'm very excited. So next week we'll go into 1993 in film. Schindler's List, finally.
We're gonna have our Jane Campion, Steven Spielberg first match.
Yes, I'll say there's a tease about Schindler's List, a movie that was such a massive deal and like such a profound experience that we went to see it in the theater during school. They like took our school to see it at the local.
Was it part of like social studies or something?
Yes. Like that's how big of it, like it was like that kind of movie. Like we have to go see this. It's like going to be a learning experience for Schindler's List.
I also saw that in school, not when it came out, but like later in middle school.
truly like a massive, I think, significant movie. So I'm excited to talk about that. And the list of Best Picture nominees that year are awesome, I think.
It's a really good year. Yeah.
And not even not even scratching the surface for some of these movies. So we'll talk about that. That this is great. I look forward to getting off the Billy wagon for a little bit and going back to Whoopi for next week.
We need a break from Billy. He needs a break.
He needs a break too. He was definitely running on fumes. So talk to you then, Joyce. Bye.